Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Jane's Fighters Anthology. In the morning sortie, we provided air cover for an amphibious landing on Crimea. So now let's see what the afternoon mission has in store for us.
You'll be providing cover to attack aircraft striking Russian armored units advancing on our expeditionary units in the Crimea. Russian fighter bombers will, in all likelihood, be circling the area, so keep your eyes outside of the cockpit.
Alright. Overwatch, USS Eisenhower, CVN 69. Date May 31st, local time, 1100 hours. Weather, cloudy. Situation, A-6Es have been called in to take out Russian armored forces advancing toward the Marine Expeditionary Force. Mission objective, protect the A-6Es from enemy fighters. Order of battle, recommended aircraft F-22N, recommended weapons AIM-9M, AIM-120, threat suppression data, ground opposition, SA-6s, SA-9s, possible 2S-6s, air opposition, possible SU-27s. So we have one good wingman. We'll be protecting 2 flights of 4 A-6s each. Looks like they'll be bombing north of the bridge crossing between Crimea and mainland Ukraine. And it looks like the Marines have taken Simferopol already, which is impressive since I think this is the same day as the invasion. I guess I'll have to go back and look. We see there's been no progress on the Polish front yet. That invasion was supposed to happen simultaneously with the Marine landing, but they haven't even reached the airfields near the border yet. And anyways, after we provide air support for the A-6s, we'll be returning to the Eisenhower. We'll take our trusty Tomcat, and I'm going to take a slightly different loadout here. We can use the Phoenix against fighter-sized targets. It's generally not as reliable as the Sparrow or the AMRAAM against fighter targets, but it can be done. So we're gonna do that, and we'll fly with that. So first, we're gonna fly around because I want a data link with the AWACS here. And next, since we're so far in the campaign, we have so many Phoenix missiles left because I've been conserving them very, very much so. What we can do is, we see there's fencers here. They're probably going after our ground forces. We'll want to take those out eventually, but they aren't our primary objective, so we gotta leave them for now. So we'll launch 2 Phoenix missiles at the worst of the flankers. We'll throw on our jammers to get their attention. And we'll start by having our wingman go after the other flanker group. And we're going to punch our afterburners in, and we're going to hope that our Phoenix missiles actually do something. Because otherwise this is going to be a pain in the ass. Alright, they got at least one. And we got both flankers, so that's good for us. That means we can go over and help our wingmen right away with these other aircraft here. So our wingman got one. We're actually going to start having him work on the fencers, because I feel like we can take out the Alright, so you got one fencer, and we're moving to intercept the flanker. So let's dive down to altitude so that way we aren't fighting ground clutter. Alright.
12 o'clock.
So we see they got a MiG-21 hidden in there. So let's wait to get a lock on this guy.
12 o'clock.
the external tanks. Alright. Go, Sparrow, go!
Wait, I see him.
Okay. Wow, he got far from us.
I'm taking a shot.
2.3 mile out of range for the there we go. Alright, he's down. 9 o'clock high. Our wingman is failing pretty bad at taking out this MiG-21 apparently.
12 o'clock high, turning left. We got him now.
Hopefully our Sparrow will make short work of it.
Let's get this guy.
Apparently not. Okay, so our wingman's taking care of that, for better or worse. So that leads us with the last flanker.
Attack standard, your 2 o'clock slow. Attack standard, contact standard, your 12 o'clock slow.
Let's get this guy off the A6s.
Turning left. Firing. Nickel. Deploy. Firing. Nickel. 12 o'clock slow. Turning right. Firing. Nickel.
Alright, we got him turning away.
Flash 1.
And we got a hit. Here's Bandit, 7 o'clock low. Time to go after those fencers. There they are.
We've got him now. Attack standard, your 10 o'clock slow. Tally-ho. 12 o'clock slow. Turning right.
So we'll click fly over, and we gotta save our boys on the ground. There's our wingmate. Alright, so they're above the platform actually, so it seems like they haven't gotten to their target just yet. He decoyed our Sidewinder with flares. But he won't be decoying our cannon. Alright, I still want to fly up so we don't hit our wingman. Now that I know where he is, we can dance with this fencer and take him out.
Let's finish this guy.
Nearest Bandit is 6 o'clock low. 12 o'clock low. We see nothing on the radar, so we can go into, we can just fly out our waypoints now. So some information about the Tomcat's armaments. The M61 Vulcan cannon. It was originally made by General Electrics. It was part of a 1946 project called Project Vulcan, which investigated the possibility of a 6-barrel cannon with a 7,200 RPM fire rate. And That evolved into a formal Air Force request for a new cannon in 1947, and the electrically powered Gatling gun actually wasn't a new concept. It was patented by Richard Gatling in 1893. Its first firings were in 1949, and I believe its initial deployment was with the F-104. Now, the F-104 showed deficiencies with the linked ammo feed system, so the M61A1 was developed, which used linkless ammo feed systems, and that is currently the standard cannon on most U.S. fighters even today. The extensive list of what the Vulcan cannon has been used in includes the F-104, the F-22, and the Super Hornet in the form of the M61A2, which that variant was designed to be 200 pounds lighter, so I believe it also has a slightly higher firing rate. The Air Force F-105, A-7D, and A-7C used it, as well as the Navy A-7E. The Air Force's F-4E used it. The Su-16 and Su-23 gun pods were based around the cannon. There's our mission accomplished, so we can head home now. Some F-106s and F-111s were retrofitted to use it, and the F-14, F-15, F-16, and F-18 use it. The Italian AMX uses it. The AC-119 uses it as a side-mounted gun, as well as some AC-130 variants. The B-58 had it installed as a tail turret, as did the B-52H. Japan's Mitsubishi F-1 uses it. The Army used a 3-barrel version, the M195, with their AH-1G Cobra gunship. The Navy's Phalanx close-in weapon system uses it, as well as the Centurion C-RAM, which is based on the Phalanx. And the Army's old M163 Vulcan air defense system used it. Vietnam War, 32 MiG-17s, a MiG-19, and 6 MiG-21s were downed by this cannon. And it's currently produced by General Dynamics, because it changed hands a lot. First it was General Electric, then they were bought out by Martin Marietta or something like that. I think it's an Italian company, but then they were bought out by Lockheed, or they merged rather, with Lockheed to form Lockheed Martin, and then Lockheed Martin sold off their Lockheed Armament division to General Dynamics. So now General Dynamics holds responsibility for the cannon. It fires very fast. It's got 6 barrels. They spin. Each rotation of the barrel assembly results in 6 rounds fired, 1 from each barrel, so that increases fire rate as well as improves reliability, since basically for every 6 shots each barrel only fires 1, so it reduces the strain and thermal wear and tear on the barrel. It's got an extremely high fire rate. I think it's something on the order of like 6,200, 6,800 RPM. So most aircraft only carry a few seconds supply. For example, the Tomcat has 675 rounds. That's about enough for 6 seconds, which the game obviously doesn't fire nearly that fast for whatever reason. But really only ground-based versions of it can fire for any sustained length of time. Like the Phalanx has a couple thousand rounds of ammunition. The Su series gun pods had a couple thousand rounds of ammunition, and I'm sure the Centurion C-RAM has a couple thousand rounds of ammunition for it. Our next weapon we're going to talk about is the Sidewinder, which has its origins in World War II Germany when they experimented with IR guidance for their missiles. The formal development began in 1946 at the Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake, with the project led by William B. McLean. It received a program designation in 1952, with the first live firing achieved on September 3rd, 1952. It intercepted a target drone on September 11, 1953. Production was authorized in 1955, with its first deployment in on Navy F-9, F-8 Cougars, and FJ-3 Furies in 1956 with the AIM-9B variant. That's the AIM-9A was mostly experimental. The missile was a cooperative effort by Raytheon, General Electric, and Philco Ford, although I believe today it's mostly Raytheon. Raytheon is designated the prime contractor. I think they still subcontract out other things like the rocket motor to other companies. Its first combat use was actually by the Republic of China, more commonly known as Taiwan. There was a secret effort by the U.S. to supply them with some AIM-9Bs and a Marine ground crew in order to modify their F-86s to use the Sidewinder and train their crews on it. So, at the time, they were outclassed by China's MiG-17s, which were an improved version of the MiG-15 that it had squared off against in Korea. And the MiG-17s would often fly over the Sabres and just completely pass them out of reach of the 50 cals on the Sabres. But we gave them AIM-9Bs, and one day, specifically September 24th, 1958, those MiG-17s were in for a surprise, as after they had passed the Sabres, they started taking missiles up their tailpipes. So there were a couple of battles over the Taiwan Straits, and during one of these battles, an AIM-9B got lodged in a MiG without exploding. The MiG managed to successfully return the base, after which the missile was extracted by China and handed over to the Soviet Union, where they reverse engineered the missile into the A-2 Atoll, which was the Soviets' version of the Sidewinder, and their first common IR-guided short-range missile. Now, the AIM-9B was rear aspect only, so you could only fire it from, like, say, the rear 90 degrees or so of an aircraft, so it could lock onto the engine, and was easily decoyed by flares, the sun, even a reflection off the lake could decoy it. The AIM-9C was a semi-active radar variant, which wasn't a success, but the Navy tried it out with their F-8 Crusaders. Eventually, they were turned into the AGM-122, a sidearm anti-radiation missiles. And the Navy ended up developing the D model, which was an improvement on the B model, the G model, which improved mainly on the kinetic performance, and the H model, which featured solid-state electronics for greater reliability, and they used those to varying degrees in Vietnam. This game only gave us the option of the AIM-9B, unfortunately. The USAF originally used the AIM-9B, but they split off their own development with the E variant in 1967, which featured improved aerodynamics, kinetics, and propulsion. The J model, which they developed in 1972, which introduced solid-state electronics for greater reliability and improved control surfaces for greater maneuverability. I had it. And then there was the N model, which was a slight improvement on the J model, and the P model, which included an improved fusing system, a reduced smoke rocket motor, and eventually, with some of the later blocks, all aspect homing capability. And, okay, I'm going to stop mucking about with that for now. So in Vietnam, there were 29 MiG-17s, 15 MiG-21s, and 2 MiG-19s shot down by Navy Sidewinders, and 16 MiG-17s, 16 MiG-21s, and 2 MiG-19s shot down by Air Force Sidewinders.
Inbound, waypoint Foxtrot, bearing 01.
The AIM-9L was the first all-aspect Sidewinder missile, which started production in 1977, and its first combat use was by F-14s in the first Gulf of Sidra action in 1981, where they shot down 2 Libyan Su-22 fitters.
Clear to land.
It was extensively used by the United Kingdom in the Falklands War against Argentina. It was used on their Harriers, and it was the first joint variant between the Air Force and the Navy since the AIM-9B. Now, the AIM-9M that we use in this campaign improves on the guidance system, as increased countermeasure resistance, a reduced smoke motor, and deliveries of that began in 1982, and it was used in the Gulf War fairly extensively. The AIM-9X is the latest variant, which uses high off-bore sight It uses a high-off bore sight capable focus plane array for its sensor array, which basically improves its target discrimination, countermeasure resistance, and
Go right. Slower.
going pretty fast there. And also increases the angle. Most aircraft only have a 15-degree angle in which they can lock on to stuff. And the A9X is capable of locking onto stuff from a 90-degree angle.
Lower.
It's also compatible with helmet-mounted cueing systems. It also has 3D thrust vectoring for greatly enhanced maneuverability. And it also has an internal cooling system, so aircraft no longer have to carry an argon or nitrogen cooling bottle. It entered service in November of 2003, starting with the FA-18C and the F-15C.
Lower. 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 Lower.
Alright, we have a good landing. I will gladly accept that. So currently the Navy and the Air Force use the AIM-9X Block 2, which started testing in September of 2008, which includes lock-on after launch and data link capabilities, so that way it has full 360-degree engagement. There's a missile from Ace Combat that's notorious for basically being able to, you can use it to lock onto an aircraft behind you. It's basically that in real life. It also includes an improved fuse, and that entered service initially in March of 2015. We'll park there. And the Sidewinder continues to be developed, and it's currently used by 43 countries other than the U.S., and it has been exported to a total of 55 non-U.S. countries over its lifetime. It was also used as the basis for the MIM-72 Chaparral surface-to-air missile system that was developed by the Army, the AGM-122A sidearm anti-radiation missile, which was used by the Navy and possibly the Army, because I know you can mount it on Cobra helicopters. And the Army currently wants to upgrade their Avenger short-range air defense system with the AIM-9X, so it seems to have a long life ahead of it still, just like the M61, which I imagine both of these weapon systems will be equipping our 6th generation fighters once those are fully developed. The AIM-7 Sparrow. In 1947, the Navy requested a beam-riding variant of their high-velocity aerial rocket under Project Hotshot, with Douglas Aircraft Company being the prime contractor. Its first aerial interception was made in 1952. The AAM-N-2 Sparrow entered service in 1954 with modified Sky Knights, and 1956 with the F-3H-2M Demon and an F-7U Cutlass. In 1952, Douglas developed the active radar Sparrow variant, the AAM-N3, but this was generally disappointing as the technology just wasn't there for it. So its performance was poor, and in 1956 the project was canceled. In 1951, Raytheon began work on a semi-active radar homing Sparrow, the AAM-N6, which entered service in 1956. The AAM-N6A involved an improved motor and guidance system, which also at that point entered U.S. Air Force service in 1962. The AAM-N6B improved on the motor once again. That started production in 1963 with a range increase of 35 kilometers. And the AAM-N6, 6A, and 6B became the AIM-7C, D, and E, with the A and B designations reserved for the AIM-N2 and the AIM-N3 Sparrows. The AIM-7E was used extensively in the Vietnam War with very disappointing performance. The kill probability of AIM-7E was less than 10%. There were 612 launches. 97 hits, 59 kills, only 2 of which were beyond visual range. And keep in mind, the Sparrow was envisioned as a BVR missile. In 1969, the AIM-7E2 was developed, which had clipped wings and improved fusing. It was known as the Dog Sparrow, and that had the much improved kill probability of 13%. The E3 had more fusing improvements, and the E4 had a modified seeker for use with the Tomcat. We're going to end the mission here because this game tends to crash, unfortunately, sometimes. So I don't. If you let it go too long. In Vietnam, 2 AN-2 transports, 5 MiG-17s, and 3 MiG-21s were shot down by Navy Sparrows. And 8 MiG-17s, 4 MiG-19s, and 38 MiG-21s were shot down by Air Force Sparrows. But the Navy learned, and the Air Force learned a lot of lessons from this. And with that came the AIM-7F Sparrow, which entered service in 1976 with a dual-stage motor for longer range, solid-state electronics for improved reliability, and a larger warhead. The AIM-7M entered service in 1982, which featured an inverse monopole seeker, active radar proximity fuse, improved digital controls, improved ECM resistance, better low-altitude performance, and they were used in the Gulf War. Of 44 fired, 30 hit their targets, 24 of those resulted in kills, 19 of those were beyond visual range. So, significant improvement over the Vietnam days. And I believe that's also the version that this game simulates us using. They don't give a letter designation on our Sparrow in the loading screen, but I'm guessing that's the version we're using. The ultimate version of the Sparrow was the AIM-7P, which had software changes improving low-level performance, and the Block 2 variants had a rear receiver to receive mid-course updates from the launching aircraft. It was used as the basis for the RIM-7 Sea Sparrow and the RIM-162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile. And right now it's being phased out in favor of the AMRAAM missile. And so it's mostly in use with allied countries that still have stocks left over that haven't bought into the AMRAAM as much yet. I believe the airframe was also used as the basis for the AMRAAM missile too, but we'll talk about that another time. The last thing I wanted to talk about today was the AIM-54 Phoenix missile, which that was developed because since 1951, carrier battle groups have faced a threat from Soviet bombers. In 1951, it was the Tu-4K Bull, which was a reverse-engineered version of the Air Force B-29 Super Fortress. They could be armed with anti-ship missiles or nuclear bombs, both of which were a big threat to naval fleets. At the height of the Cold War, the Navy would have faced regiment-sized raids from Tu-60 and Tu-22 and Tu-22M bombers equipped with long-range, high-speed, low-altitude anti-ship missiles and with ECM support. So the original interceptor missile designed to deal with this was the AAM-N-10 Eagle, which would have been paired with the Westinghouse AN/APQ-81 radar, but the Missileer project was canceled in December of 1960. Hughes developed the AIM-47 Falcon for the YF-12 project for the Air Force. The YF-12 was a variant of the A-12, which was kind of like the little brother to the SR-71, and as badass as that would have been, that project was also canceled. Leveraging lessons learned from the Eagle and Falcon, though, they developed the Phoenix missile for the doomed F-111B project, and eventually they incorporated it into the F-14 and paired it with its AWG-9 radar in 1974 with the AIM-54A Phoenix, which entered service with the Tomcat. In 1977, they developed the AIM-54C, which included improvements to electronic countermeasures, amongst other things, as well as digital electronics for improved reliability. And the Phoenix missile had a range of 115 miles, which for its day was very impressive. I mean, the max range of any Sparrow variant, I think, is generally between 30 and 40 miles. Older ones were probably closer to 20 miles. The AMRAAM started out with a range of 20 miles and only now has a range of about 100 miles. So very impressive considering this was back in the 70s. Now, the Tomcat radar could track 24 targets in track while scan mode, and 6 of those could be designated as targets for the Phoenix. they could share data with an E-2C Hawkeye, using the Link 4 data link, which allowed them to use that information to throw out Phoenix missiles as well, and they eventually received the improved Link 4A data link, which allowed them to share information with other fighters. The F-14D has the Link 16 data link, which allowed them to share information with pretty much any ship or aircraft for improved situational awareness. Now, the Phoenix initially uses a form of semi-active homing. I don't think it uses true semi-active radar, but what it does is it climbs really high, 80 to 100,000 feet, and then it receives mid-course guidance updates from the launching aircraft that steer towards target until it gets within range of the active radar seeker that's in the missile. At that point, the target dives at Mach 5 and uses its internal active radar for terminal homing. Now, all 3 U.S. launches of the Phoenix failed, and those were in 1999 against Iraqi aircraft. I think those were during the Operation Southern Watch, I think it was called, when we had that no-fly zone over Iraq. All the missiles, 2 of them malfunctioned, and 1 just missed. And the Phoenix was retired with the Tomcat, and now the latest AMRAAM variants finally get out to this range that the Phoenix does, but I don't think their warhead is as big. And we were without a long-range missile for a long time, over a decade, as a result. Now, the F-14 didn't see much combat during the Iraq War because they were generally restricted to protecting the carriers. They weren't given much in the way of overland patrols because the F-15s had a superior identify friend or foe system at the time, so the big dogs thought the Tomcat wasn't up to the task of engaging in beyond visual range combat without incurring a high risk of friendly fire. So unfortunately they didn't see as much action as they could have. And there's little information on Iranian usage, although I'm sure they used it extensively during the there are stories of them using it extensively during the Iran-Iraq war to great effect against Iraqi bombers. But I didn't delve too much into those stories for this. The Iranians did eventually develop a reverse-engineered version since they couldn't exactly rely on the U.S. for spares and supplies, and that's known as the Fokker 90, which appears to be identical to the Phoenix missile, but no one really knows its true capabilities yet, although it's assumed to be somewhat comparable to the AIM-54C, and up to 6 could be carried by a Tomcat, and I believe it can only land with 4. I know I read that somewhere, but I can't find that source, so I can't say that definitively. So that's the quick not quite so quick overview of all the Tomcat's weapon systems. So now we can get to our debriefing. Debrief: USS Eisenhower CVN-69. Date: May 31st. Mission: Overwatch. Resolution: success. The A-6s owe their existence to you. Excellent work keeping the strike force safe. Mission outcome was success. Took us half an hour. We had a landing grade of 100%. Wingman had 47% landing grade. None of us took damage. We took out 4 flankers. Our wingman took out MiG-21, and then we both scored 2 fencer kills. Half of our launches hit, mainly because all of our I think 3 of our sparrows failed, as well as let's see, half hit. 3 of our sparrows were spoofed, and I know 1 Sidewinder was spoofed. So I guess we had 1 Sparrow, 1 Sidewinder, and 2 Phoenix hits. Our wingman only had a hit rate of 25%, a quarter of his just failed outright, and half were spoofed. We both had 25% hit on our guns, although it looks like we dealt more damage, because I think this is damage, not rounds, because I don't think we had 200 rounds left. No one shot at us. That's actually really nice. Those ace flankers we fired at, they would have shot at us if we didn't have the Phoenix missiles.
And on the Polish border, bombs rained down on U.S. defensive positions as Russian fighter bombers lashed out at coalition forces. Russian tank divisions were reportedly advancing west, bringing the week-long standoff to an end. In the Black Sea, U.S. Marines successfully secured 2 beachheads.
This is it, sports fans. You know, the casualties could get completely out of control now.
Especially if the Russians put those chemical weapons to use.
We can deal with those. Let's just hope they aren't saving the nukes for us.
And certainly that would be a big concern in any war between Russia and the U.S., or indeed between any sort of large power. The U.S., Britain, China, France, Germany, well, okay, not so much Germany, Russia. So we'll do our maintenance on our Tomcat. At least now we know why they didn't make progress on the Polish border. It looks like Russia threw most of their weight in keeping that offensive from getting us a good foothold in the Ukraine. So I imagine we'll be supporting that offensive next time. So look forward to that, and we'll see you then.